The mysterious bus. It was a bitterly cold winter morning. As I waited at the small bus stop in our snow-covered village, snowflakes fell thickly, and darkness hung like a heavy veil over everything. The wind whistled through the bare trees, and I tightened my scarf around my neck. My breath formed small clouds in the freezing air. As usual, I was waiting for the 182 bus that would take me to school. But today, it wasn't an ordinary bus that arrived. From afar, I heard the faint hum of an engine, and then it emerged from the swirling snow, a grey, outdated bus whose mere appearance immediately unsettled me. The display read Route 200. That puzzled me. There was no such route in our area. The bus screeched to a halt in front of me, and the sound of the brakes made me flinch. The driver was different. Through the frosted windscreen, I saw his pale face. His eyes were black, so deep and empty, they gave me the unsettling feeling of being drawn into them. He wore an old-fashioned uniform, as if it belonged to a time long past. Without a word, he nodded at me, and the bus doors creaked open. I hesitated before stepping in, my heart beating faster than I cared to admit. Maybe they've changed the route, I thought, trying to calm myself. But as I looked around, I noticed that the other students who had boarded seemed just as uneasy. "Strange route, whispered a red-haired boy behind me as I took a seat. I just nodded silently and stared out of the window. The familiar snowy landscape passed by, but then the bus took an unfamiliar turn. "This isn't the way to school," I murmured to myself. My gaze shifted to the driver, but he stared fixedly at the road, his face expressionless. "Is he going the wrong way?" asked a girl sitting 2 rows ahead, turning to her friend. "Maybe he's lost," her friend replied, though the uncertainty in her voice was unmistakable. The road led us deeper into the woods, and the familiar surroundings disappeared. The snow swirled thicker, and the silence inside the bus became almost suffocating. Each of us was lost in thought, our eyes nervously fixed on the passing scenery. Old, abandoned buildings began to appear, lonely barns, frozen ponds. Everything looked as though it had remained untouched for decades. Suddenly, the bus slowed and stopped in front of an abandoned mine. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I recognized this place from stories. The old mine was a sight everyone talked about, though no one really knew the truth, or at least not the whole truth. In school, it was the stuff of dares, the kind that proved how fearless you were. But even the bravest rarely stayed there for more than a few minutes. Adults would simply shake their heads whenever the mine was mentioned, as if the mere thought of it could summon misfortune. The legends surrounding the mine were numerous and terrifying. One of the oldest tales claimed that a terrible accident had occurred there in the early 19th century. At the time, the mine was one of the largest in the region, employing hundreds of men who worked tirelessly day and night. One night, during a late shift, a careless worker dropped a lantern. Sparks caught on the old wooden beams, and the fire spread rapidly. The shafts filled with smoke, turning the tunnels into death traps. They said that 73 men and boys lost their lives that day. But what was truly unsettling was this: their bodies were never recovered. The mine collapsed before any could be retrieved. Some claimed that their spirits lingered there, trapped in the shafts, caught between darkness and eternity, waiting for someone to return and set them free. Others spoke of a foreman named Miner Jacob, an eerie figure who was allegedly responsible for the accident. He was said to have deliberately sent workers into the most dangerous parts of the mine to save costs. After the fire, he disappeared, as though had vanished off the face of the earth. Yet some swore they had seen him years later, holding a soot-covered lantern that always flickered, even when there was no wind. Children who ventured too close to the mine often spoke of hearing a deep, hollow humming and seeing a lantern floating through the darkness. Those who looked closer spoke of a face that seemed straight out of hell, Jacob still guarding his shafts. Then there was the tale of the screams from the depths. Wanderers passing through the forest near the old mine claimed they had heard cries on moonless nights, echoing from deep underground, as though someone were desperately pleading for help. But when they tried to investigate, they were struck by an inexplicable chill that robbed the air from their lungs. The older villagers warned against responding to such sounds. It wasn't people calling out, they said, but something else, something that wanted to pull you into the darkness. Some of the braver villagers had attempted to enter the mine over the years. None ever returned. The few remnants they left behind, torches, provisions, or shoes, were always found in the same spot, right at the mine's entrance, a gaping maw in the earth. A more recent legend, particularly popular among the school children, told of a mysterious group of men in black cloaks who were said to gather near the mine at night. Some claimed they were performing rituals to summon the spirits of the dead miners. Others believed they were attempting to awaken something far darker, something that had been sleeping beneath the earth for decades. These stories and rumors made the old mine a place most avoided, and for the rest, it became a test of courage with a steep price. When our bus stopped at that cursed location, and I saw the grim, snow-covered ruins, I felt the weight of all those tales pressing on my shoulders. It was as if the ground itself preserved the memory of the suffering and darkness. The entrance to the mine yawned like a giant black void, waiting to swallow us whole. The snow seemed to avoid falling around it, as though the darkness protected the place. It was silent, too silent. No wind, no birds, no signs of life. And in that eerie stillness, only one thought consumed me. We should never have come here. "What's he doing?" asked the red-haired boy as he moved forward to speak to the driver. But when he reached the driver's seat, it was empty. The bus driver had vanished without a trace. The doors of the bus opened with a loud hiss. "He's gone." But how? The girl from earlier looked at us with wide eyes. "Maybe he's outside," someone suggested. "Let's check." Hesitantly, some of us stepped out, while others stayed on the bus. The wind was biting cold, and the snow crunched beneath our feet. I noticed how the clouds thickened, and a strange mist began to roll in. "Over there!" a girl shouted, pointing to a flickering light moving between the trees. It was faint, like an old lantern struggling to stay alight. We followed the light, though every instinct in me screamed that we should turn back. The closer we got, the quieter it became. The wind fell silent, and the snow seemed to fall without sound. The air grew heavy, and my heart pounded faster. The light led us to an old wooden cabin. The windows were frosted over, and the door hung crooked on its hinges. The lantern's glow cast long, eerie shadows. "Is he in there?" the red-haired boy whispered, but no one replied. I pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly. Inside, the air was icy cold. The lantern hung from the ceiling, casting weak, trembling light. In the center of the room, the bus driver hung lifelessly. His pale face was blank, his eyes black as the void around us. The air was filled with a putrid stench, and my stomach churned. "We need to get out of here," someone yelled, panicking, and we bolted back towards the bus. But when we reached the spot where the bus had been, it was gone. Nothing remained, just snow, silence, and the dark forest. I woke with a start. My breathing was ragged, my heart pounding like a sledgehammer. I was drenched in sweat, despite the icy chill of my room. The shrill beeping of my bedside alarm clock dragged me back to reality. It was just a dream, I told myself. A terrible nightmare. I stayed still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But the uneasy feeling lingered. It was as if a shadow had crept into my room, invisible but undeniable. Finally, I sat up and swung my legs over the edge of the bed. The wooden floor was cold beneath my feet, and I shivered. My eyes drifted to the window. Snow was still falling, thick flakes quietly blanketing the village below. The streetlights cast a faint glow into the darkness. Everything seemed so peaceful, yet I could feel something out of place, something that didn't belong. A sudden impulse drove me to pull the curtain slightly aside, and then I saw it. In the distance, barely visible through the heavy snowfall, a bus stood still. Its shape was hazy, but the display above the windscreen was clear. Route 200. My stomach tightened, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. I blinked, hoping I was mistaken, that the bus was just a figment of my imagination, a remnant of my dream. But it was still there, motionless, like a predator lurking in the dark. The hallway light flickered suddenly, accompanied by a faint buzzing sound. I flinched, my eyes darting toward the door. "It's just the electricity," I muttered under my breath, though my voice trembled. The alarm clock on my bedside table began ticking, loudly and rapidly, far faster than normal. I felt the air in my room change. It grew heavy, almost tangible, and a faint metallic scent, like something burnt, filled my nostrils. My gaze returned to the window. The bus was closer now. "That's impossible," I whispered, my voice cracking. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my hands against my temples, trying to steady myself. But when I looked out again, the bus was now parked at the corner of my street, right outside my house. The snow didn't seem to touch it. It was pristine, as if immune to the frost and cold. I saw the driver. His black eyes were fixed directly on me. I knew he could see me, that he was waiting for me. His pale lips twisted into a faint, unnatural smile that made the blood in my veins run cold. Then I heard it, a soft knock. It came from the front door downstairs. Steady, rhythmic, deliberate. I didn't want to move, didn't even want to breathe, but my feet seemed to act on their own. Slowly, I stood and crept to my bedroom door, my steps barely more than whispers on the floor. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. I reached for the handle, opened the door just a crack, and peered into the dark hallway. Nothing, only the faint, humming silence of the house. But the knocking remained, and then suddenly, it was right in front of me, at my bedroom door. I screamed, stumbling backward, tripping over my chair. My head hit the floor hard, and everything went black. When I came to, it was silent. The alarm clock read 6:15 a.m., time to get ready for school. But the eerie silence I felt wasn't ordinary. It was oppressive, suffocating, as if the world around me was holding its breath. I barely dared to look out of the window, but something pulled me toward it, like a magnet. I drew the curtain aside. The bus was gone, but the tracks of its tires were clear in the snow, right outside my house. They ended exactly where they had started, as if the bus had only come to visit, to leave me a warning or an invitation. I sincerely thank you for embarking on this journey into the darkness with me. It has been a great honor to reveal a piece of the unknown to you. Should you wish to continue exploring the secrets of our world, I cordially invite you to subscribe to the channel. That way, you will never again overlook a flickering shadow at the edge of your sight, nor ignore the soft whispers in the dark, waiting patiently to be heard by you. If you wish to make me a most special joy, you will find my Amazon wish list in the description. Each wish you grant fills me with immeasurable delight and gives me the motivation to create even more stories, allowing the light of the midnight lantern to shine ever brighter. It is by no means a necessity, yet every gesture fills my heart with profound gratitude. May the light of the midnight lantern ever guide and protect you, and may the shadows find no hold upon you, until we cross paths once more, when the darkness calls forth again.